I'll start with a quick relationship update. I realize I haven't given one in a few days. We've been spending more time together with some wonderful conversations and connectivity. We haven't been overly activity focused this week, or at least not activity focused as a couple. We've both done our own work and talked about it, but this week we've mostly taken a more relaxed and organic approach to our time together instead of filling it with activities and pointed discussions. We're not avoiding the work, we're just giving ourselves some space to reflect on what we've done so far and how we want to proceed. I'll be talking more about the rationale for that on another day. For now, let me just say that what we're doing is working and we're both pleased with the direction we're moving, so yay. Today, I'm revisiting imposter syndrome. After the video on day 5, I still had some lingering thoughts about imposter syndrome, and I started getting some questions and comments from people about that video. I'm not thinking about imposter syndrome for me as a person or for me as a therapist. I'm thinking about it in terms of my relationships, and mostly in terms of my most intimate relationship. I talked before about not having a good working definition of imposter syndrome. That's even more so when I'm talking about relationship imposter syndrome. No, it's not a real word. I think I've made that phrase up. So remember that we looked at imposter syndrome basically as feelings of not belonging or not being enough in some way. Makes it difficult to accept your strengths while maximizing real or, in a lot of cases, perceived shortcomings. In relationships of all kinds, it can cause persistent worry that somebody will discover that you're not as great as they might think and they end the relationship. Usually it's about romantic relationships, but really it can be about friendships and even work relations. And if we don't address it, these insecurities lead to significant distress, and quite often they do cause relationships to end. What does relationship imposter syndrome look like? How would you know it if you saw it? A lot of it's kind of the same as just personal imposter syndrome. One trait is a high level of perfectionism. You feel this immense pressure to live up to some image, maybe created by you, maybe created by somebody else. You constantly worry about not performing perfectly or not being perfect in some way. You worry about being found out as incompetent or unworthy or incapable of being something. So you invest a lot of time trying to act a certain way to maintain this facade so the other person will love you. Another trait is insecurity, which I have talked a lot about. All the ways you might feel unworthy or unlovable or not good enough. Insecurity and self-doubt will become part of all your interactions, and it always shows. Insecurity is really hard to hide, and often it gets found out just by the ways we try to hide things. People who know us really well can see through a lot, if not all, of our bullshit. Over time, insecurity leads to the sense of doom, a sense of dread, just waiting for things to go wrong. There's also shame in relationship imposter syndrome. Usually this happens when we get really close to someone, when we open up and show real vulnerability. We might have feelings of shame about things from our past, or maybe even things that we're doing now. Example could be hiding a prior bad act, like some kind of a criminal charge, or hiding the reasons why you just got fired from a job, or shame about viewing porn when you know your partner wants more sex. Anything that we can get scared to admit out of fear of being judged can lead to shame. It ties in with those feelings of not being enough and worrying that somebody will leave you if they knew all the shameful things about you. Another relationship imposter syndrome trait is a fear of rejection. A lot of times, this is rooted in being rejected in the past for various reasons, and assuming that that pattern is going to always continue throughout your lifespan. That might be related to attachment styles. I won't delve into attachment styles here. Great topic. Maybe I'll go into it on another day. But people with insecure or avoidant attachment styles tend to hold back for fear of rejection. A great book about attachment is Attached: The New Science of Adult Attachment and How It Can Help You Find and Keep Love. I've recommended this book many, many times. I always get great feedback from people. They always tell me how much they learn about themselves and a lot of their relationships. Even though the book is written specifically about romantic relationships, almost all of it can be applied to relationships in general. Another trait of relationship imposter syndrome is feelings of worthlessness. People with low self-esteem are more likely to experience imposter syndrome in all its forms. The same is true for people who've suffered trauma, and especially if that trauma is somehow tied to relationships. Same is true for people who grew up in unsupportive families. Same is true for certain vulnerable and marginalized populations. And when we feel worthless in general, we feel unworthy of love and connection. So far, all of this is sounding like the same imposter syndrome shit I talked about last week. But when we apply it to relationships specifically, we can get lots of self-sabotage, self-defeating behaviors, acting out, withholding, avoidance of emotional intimacy, avoidance of sex, lots of bickering or actual fighting, passive-aggressive swipes at one another, lots of things that don't serve us. So we sabotage the success of the relationship. We do things we know will cause problems, even if we're able to justify it at the time. We stop putting good effort into the relationship. We quit trying as hard as we should. We check out, and we start justifying the end of the relationship. It starts to feel inevitable. So we do things to make sure it happens, usually in ways where our self-sabotage and self-defeating behaviors take the brunt of the blame, ensuring that we continue that cycle over and over and over. Okay, all that makes sense. Really not complicated or hard to understand. And for sure, I've been there with a lot of my relationships. Friends, family, boyfriends, whatever I might call more casual, regular flings where I was definitely unkind to myself. And my current mate, the man I'm deeply committed to. I can see the pattern over time. I'm not blind to it. I'm not denying it. And I'm actively working on it like we talked about last week. But what if I put a spin on this? What happens when relationship imposter syndrome shows up in a good relationship? I know, you're thinking, if it's a good relationship, that won't happen. Okay, what rock are you living under? Of course it happens. Let me show you how. Say you've been together for a while. You've had ups and downs like everybody else, but mostly ups. You're happy together, life is generally good. Then you start looking around and wondering, what if I'm wrong? See, we all want that storybook romance and perfect partner, but that shit is not real outside of Disney tales and Hallmark holiday movies, probably soon to start. But we see it everywhere. We see it on TV, we see it in the movies, it's in romance novels, in our Facebook feeds, in magazine articles and self-help books about having a great marriage, Instagram reels of couples frolicking in the waves at Bora Bora. So we start to ask questions. Should this relationship be better? Could it be stronger? Should I be happier? Are we having enough mind-blowing, toe-curling sex? Is this person really the best person for me? Am I really the best person for them? What if there's something better out there? Is this really what I've always wanted? Why does it seem harder for us than other people we know? Wasn't like this with my ex. Why is this so much more work? Is there even such a thing as the one, or am I settling? Am I happiest in this relationship? What parts of single life am I missing out on? Do I really want to grow old with this fucker? Pretty soon, these questions take on a life of their own. Confidence gets eroded. You question your ability to see things clearly. Am I deluding myself? Am I being paranoid? Am I expecting too much? Am I not expecting enough? And after a while, the doubt creeps in. And if left unchecked, it leads to relationship imposter syndrome, even if it wasn't there before. Yes, I freely admit I've had imposter syndrome issues. I own that. Yes, I've had relationship imposter syndrome issues. I own that. In fact, I need to be real with myself that I'm still addressing these issues. And I need to be real that something that made me really uncomfortable was the blurring of the line between my relationship imposter syndrome that was unique to me and the couple relationship imposter syndrome that started to creep in and really took root when things weren't so great and definitely made things worse. So what do I do with this now? Fuck if I know. Right now, I'm just trying to keep things in perspective. I'm reminding myself that we've all got questions all the time. Everybody wonders about the state of the relationship and how to keep things going well. In fact, I think it would be really odd if people didn't have those questions from time to time. That's part of how we check in and keep things happy and healthy as much as possible. I'm also reminding myself that relationships change over time as we learn more about one another and more about ourselves with another person. Dating, to a big extent, is all about marketing, selling yourself, making the impression. Relationship building is about taking it to a deeper level and growing together in truth and in love. That includes imperfections and blemishes and things we might be ashamed of, because we know there is no perfect person and no perfect relationship. But if we're doing the work, and if the connection is there, we move past the seemingly perfect early days of dating and settle into the complexities that make somebody so wonderful and interesting and special. I'm also trying to remind myself to avoid dichotomous thinking. All or nothing thinking doesn't reflect reality. Nobody is all good or all bad. No relationship is utterly perfect or a complete shit show. We're more complicated than that. Absolutes don't work. I need to think more about fluidity. What percentage of the time am I happy in this relationship? What percentage of the time am I happy with this person? What percentage of the time am I unfulfilled? I know it'll never be 100% all the time. That's not realistic, that's okay. But am I getting enough? And if not, can we course correct? Lastly, I'm going to stop making unfair comparisons. Or at least I'm going to try my dead level best to stop. It's a distorted thought process that doesn't serve me at all. It doesn't serve my relationship. I can't base my relationship worth on somebody else's Instagram reel. I can't base my relationship worth on the seemingly perfect marriage of my bestie next door. This relationship is ours, and we get to set the standards by which we want to measure our success in love and in life. So that's where I'm at today. Looking at relationship imposter syndrome and accepting that every relationship has ups and downs, moments of doubts and uncertainty, and the things that lead us there, they don't have to be harbingers of doom. They're opportunities for us to partner together for growth. I'll be reflecting more on that tonight, and I'll be back tomorrow.